This is Twit.
So you download an app that says
I do that every once in a while.
Free.
Mm-hmm.
I
do that too.
It says Get if you're in the Apple App Store. Or you sign up for a service online like Facebook or Twitter or something like that.
Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? I mean, free is free,
Free
right?
is free.
That's it.
That's what one would think.
Game over.
Yeah, game over. We're done. There are so many free apps, so many free services out there. And I would imagine that you've probably signed up for one or two. And you may be thinking, at least now I do. I may not have at one point, but now I sort of go, now how are they able to offer this for free?
Yeah, totally.
And that is what we're going to be talking about now with Rani Molla of Recode, now at Vox, about how your free software is never actually free. Rani, thank you so much for joining us.
How are you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. So let's go ahead and kick things off with my first question. You talk about alternative data and kind of how that is at the forefront of this whole free software that's not actually free. So can you explain a little bit about what alternative data is?
Alternative data is basically any sort of extra if a company doesn't put it out as part of its financial report, it's alternative data, but usually it means something to do with your digital trail. If you collect data from an app, for example, or if I go on, if I get an app and then I give it permissions to sort of see where my location is or the sort of, or what I'm searching for on the internet, all of that becomes sort of a data trail that then, depending on the terms of service, can be sold and repackaged, and people like investors could use it to sort of see how well a different product is doing, how a trend is doing, or how people behave.
Yeah, so it seems like this conversation has been led by Facebook's new tool, which lets you track or see, at least view, your off-Facebook activity. So I went on and saw the different sites that had my information that this is actually, I'm hoping that you can kind of explain it a little bit more. What exactly is off-Facebook activity? Why does Facebook have this information, and how does that transaction work there?
Okay, so all of this information is so that Facebook can better target you ads. Now, companies, like let's say a store, where you might purchase something online. If that company, let's say the Gap, for example, I'm not saying they do this, but let's say you buy something from the Gap wants to then be able to send you an advertisement later reminding you, hey, we're having a sale, or come back to us, or something like that. In order to do so, they collect information. Hey, Rani Molla bought X. And now they give it to Facebook, or Rani Molla visited our website, which is much more common. They give that to Facebook, and then Facebook is able to see, okay, this is the sort of person or this that we want to sell X ad to, or put X ad in front of. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, I don't have a Facebook account. I got rid of it a couple of years ago. When I saw off Facebook activity tool, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier, you asked me, well, is it possible for someone who doesn't have a Facebook account to do this? Because there's like, in my mind, it's easy to kind of lump this into the discussion that has been had around shadow accounts and that sort of stuff. Even if you aren't on Facebook, you're still on Facebook, they're tracking you, that sort of stuff. But that has nothing to do with this, because you need a Facebook account to even have any sort of sense of control over this. Is that right?
Right. They're still collecting this, even if you, the new tool gives you an option that you could turn this off. And they're not turning off the collection, and they're not turning off the fact that companies are going to keep sending this information to Facebook. You're turning off that they're linking it to you, so that now your ads won't indicate that, hey, I've been to this store and this company now wants to advertise to me. But that doesn't stop the collection of it.
Right. And it almost seems like this tool is almost a bit of a revelation. It's shining a light on that specific thing there, that when you go in and you go through the process of, okay, I want to turn off collection, and it pops up with that prompt, or I think it's either it pops up with the prompt or it says it in the text. If you read the fine print, which you should, it's that revelation that, even though I am telling Facebook not to link it to my specific account, all of these sites are tracking me out there. All
Still
of these
gonna
sites
happen.
are
Right.
getting my data. And, one of the things that I found surprising was there were some sites that were listed in my information that I had never heard of, stores I had never heard of. I was doing some Googling to try and find some of these services to figure out how in the world I had interacted with them in the past. And then also seeing which ones more and less were tracking me. And TikTok was right at the top of sending a bunch of data to Facebook.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just thinking that this sort of sheds light on this whole giant alternative data industry that's out there. Everyone, who has any sort of digital presence seems to be tracking your information. So yeah, it's a lot bigger than just Facebook, even though they're sending it to Facebook.
Now, what can people do if I see on Facebook that I've got all of these sites that are sending my data to Facebook? Do these different alternative data collectors have a way to not only request your data that is being collected from them, but also ask for them to stop, especially with these, the GDPR? And
I think there's something under the CCPA that should help, the California Act that should allow you to ask a company to see what you have and then ask them to not sell it. I mean, I don't think it stops them from collecting it, is my understanding. But as far as Facebook, there are a few ways you could turn it off, at least having it not linked to your account anymore. Even though they will continue sending it to you, you could delete your history, and you could also say, "Hey, I don't want to receive ads based on what I do in my real life."
I think one thing that continues to come to mind for me on this is just this, like you were saying a little bit earlier, Micah, like at one time we would sign up for things that were free because we just didn't really know any better. We didn't know what was happening behind the scenes. We didn't realize, the title of your article about how free software is never truly free. Like I've heard that a lot in various different ways now, but years ago, if something was free, I didn't think twice about it because it's so easy to just sign up for it. And I think just in general, it's so easy for the everyday internet user to divulge intense amounts of information about themselves and not even really have any sort of reason in that moment to question that, because here's the thing I want, it happens to be free, all I really have to do is hit that button and I'm there, and boom, like it's kind of too late to put that back in the bag.
Part of the issue, I think, is that we don't realize that there's an increasing amount of data that they can collect.
Yes.
And there's increasing utility that they could get from it. It seems like, oh, who cares? They have my email, or they have my location, or they have this one thing. The bigger or the larger issue is that altogether, with newer and better data analysis and with more and more data, they're being able to paint a better picture of us. So it's a lot more valuable than you would think from any one piece of information.
Yeah. I want to double down on that. So someone comes to me and they're thinking about signing up for a service, and I say, okay, if you do sign up for this service, they can track you here, they can do this, they can do that, they can do this. And the person says, oh, there's sort of an apathy.
Yes, apathy is the right word.
So tell us why giving over all of your data could potentially be dangerous or harmful at the very least, why someone would want to think twice before they go and sign up for a service that is free.
Well, it's weird because I am a little bit. I know that people are going to do it anyway. We're human beings. We're going to do the easiest thing possible, the thing that's that makes the most sense in that minute. So I don't necessarily think the onus is completely on us. I do think that we need sort of laws and different things to protect us more broadly. But I guess the thing that gives me pause when I download the umpteenth app is that I don't know yet what they'll figure out to do with this information in the future. So it's not so much. There's a lot they could derive about what I want to buy, who I am now. I think the scariest stuff is what we don't know yet.
It's the connections made between all of these different data points. It's the power of artificial intelligence and analyzing these things and drawing those connections that maybe human beings aren't as adept at recognizing these patterns, and taking this random data point all the way over here, this random data point, and pairing it up. And oh no, suddenly the computer or the algorithm knows more about you than maybe even you do.
Oh boy.
That's the threat that I see. And I totally realize that's also kind of could be construed as tinfoil hat thinking, but I don't think that that's too far off. I don't know. What do you think?
No, I don't think so either. I try to, be measured about it. We have a lot of information that's already out there. We've already, as you said, gotten all these apps in the first place. You try to pick your battles. You try to lessen the number of places. I do think it's best to place, how do I put this? Bigger companies tend to be a little bit more trustworthy in that at least they are held accountable. There are so many smaller little companies that just kind of fly by the wayside, whereas people will get angry at Facebook and still are angry at Facebook, and eventually Facebook has to do things like release these tools and that enable us to see what they are tracking and give a wider amount of transparency. So there's hope that the bigger companies will be more transparent in the future. Absolutely. But they're already the most powerful, so
maybe they have no reason to
do that. Yeah, I mean, right now, it does seem sort of like those big companies, and it's the companies that are in the public eye. It's the companies that we know about, and not so much those shadow companies that are collecting the data.
Third-party data companies.
Yes, right. Those ones are the ones that we really need to be looking into. But I guess the last question I have for you, and kind of the biggie, is okay. So now we know that these different sites are tracking us in these different ways. We know how it can impact us. We know that one day we might need our tinfoil hats. But for now, aside from buying a whole box of aluminum foil, what can people do to protect themselves online and keep themselves private? What are some tips that you have for them?
Well, there's a bunch of different ways you could do this. You could make sure you use secure passwords, secure and unique passwords. Also, you could limit the amount of information that sites like Facebook or Google collect about you. You could also use different ad blockers. There's a lot of different well-respected ad blockers out there that sort of cut down. They don't completely get rid of it, but they cut down on the amount of tracking that's being done without you even knowing. As you said before, you looked at all of these sites and you're like, I don't even remember going there. That's indicative of the extent to which you are being followed around the web. So good passwords, check your settings on the things that you already use that you can't really do without. And then